Hello and welcome to Learn with Indrjeet. This is another video in the series of videos titled Building a To-Do Management System Application in the latest .NET 8 framework from Microsoft. In this series of videos, we are building together a very simple to-do management system application in order to learn a few concepts of C# and .NET 8. In the previous video, we implemented the to-do lists page and the to-dos page. If you haven't watched that video, please go ahead and watch that too. In this video, we'll be implementing navigation and routing from to-do groups to to-do lists and from to-do list to to-dos page using routing parameters. It is going to be very informative, so watch this video till end, and if you find this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. I'm really very excited to dive in, but before that, if you have already subscribed to my channel, thank you very much. And if you haven't, please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell icon so you never miss out on the latest content. So let's get started. So here we are in Visual Studio. I have got the application running and we want to implement a functionality where if we want to see the lists belonging to this test group, we want to have a button over here just next to the delete button, and if we click on that button, it will take us to the to-do list page, which will show us a list of to-do lists belonging to this particular group. Okay, as in the database, you can see we have, as of now, we have these 5 to-do groups. Then we have 4 lists, but the first 3, these ones, belong to group number 1, and the 4th one does not belong to any group. So if we click on that button in the UI, here, it should show us the to-do list belonging to this group only. Okay, so before implementing it in the UI, let's go ahead and implement a controller action in the to-do list controller, which will say /API to-do list /get by group ID, and we'll pass in the group ID as a nullable integer to that function. Okay, so let's go ahead and implement that in the API first. So in the web API controller, to-do list controller, we want to have a functionality something of this type. So let's copy this one down below, just below the delete range action method, paste that. Let's name this method get by group ID, and it will be, let's name this parameter as GID nullable, and the name would be get by group ID, and control RR to rename this parameter GID. Let's make it integer nullable, and it will be coming from route. Okay, like so. If the parameter supplied is less than or equal to 0, then we'll throw a bad request, get failed, invalid input. Otherwise, we will use a function in the to-do list service, which is get by group ID, not there yet. We'll implement it shortly, to get the model VMs. Okay, so let's rename these also to VMs, and let's record not found. Yes, and this one will say, let's take this guy here, count this much records fetched. Okay, so Let's implement a get by group ID function in the to-do list service, which is there in the application project. So Control T. Don't confuse it with the to-do list service that we have in the web app project. So we want to go to this one. And before implementing this function, let's declare it in the interface. So it is supposed to return us a task of list of to-do list VMs. To-do list VMs. The name would be group ID, and it will accept a integer nullable GID as a parameter, like that. Okay, so now in the service, let's implement that interface method. Okay, so what we are saying here is, if this GID that is coming is less than or equal to 0, simply return null, one thing. If it is not, then models await. So before using await, await underscore unit of work dot to do list repository dot get by group ID. See, this function is not there in the repo itself, so we'll go ahead and create that in a bit. So we are supposed to get a list of to-do lists by group ID. Now if, sorry, it was suggesting me the same thing. So if models are null, return null, else where VMs is equal to, sorry, let's name it model VMs, like that, is equal to mapper dot map everything to a list of to-do list VMs. Okay, and then simply return the model VMs. Fine. So let's go to the repository and implement this method. Sorry, Control T, infrastructure project. In the interface, we want to declare a function that will be a task of list of to-do lists. Yes, this will be the model. It will accept a integer nullable GID as a parameter. And in the repo, let's implement that. So we'll say return from appdb context to do lists where x such that x dot group ID to do group ID is equal to the GID that we are supplying, and convert that to a list async and simply return the list as a task, okay, to this service. Yes, and this service will return these view models to the controller. So far so good. So let's check this in the API in the Swagger. Here it is, and in the to-do lists we have a to-do list get by group ID. Let's try that, and if we click 1, we should see 3 items. So 1, 2, 3. So 3 records are fetched, and these are the same records that we can see here. Okay, and if we specify 2 as a group ID, there is no list item belonging to group number 2. Let's see what it says. So if we pass in 2, 0 records fetched. Okay, And if we pass in a wrong ID, invalid input, right? Bad request. So we are done up to API. Let's go ahead and implement in the front end application. Okay, so close all tabs, and in the web app project to-do groups page, let's go to those tools. Here we have the buttons for edit, delete, and save and cancel. So just below that, let's paste our anchor tag, which will take us to the to-do list page with a group ID of the group. Okay, so we want to tell this list page that you will have a param now. So let's tell it to have a GID param, which will be a nullable, and in the code behind, F7 to go to the code behind, let's declare a property integer, nice, GID. Okay, let's make it a nullable int, and let's say it will be coming from route, okay, like so. And now, instead of getting all the to-do lists from this get function, we want to say get by group ID and pass in the GID over here. But this function is not there in the to-do list service. So let's go there and create that in the interface first. So it will give us a task of list of, sorry, it will give us a task of API response. It knows only that, and get by group ID with integer nullable, sorry, with integer nullable GID as a parameter, right? And in the to-do service, to-do list service, let's go to the to-do list service from here, the web app, and implement this interface. So here we want to say, in fact, let's get this line from the generic service that we have. We already have this line here, so copy and paste that here. Now the problem is, get by group ID is a function in the controller. That's fine, we are passing in the controller name, that's okay. But the HTTP client service get function expects a integer, not a nullable integer. So let's create an overload of this get function that accepts a integer nullable as a param. Okay, so let's go there, control F12, and here is our get function. Let's make it a replica and pass in the integer nullable. Now the get response is not happy because it is expecting a integer. Okay, so let's go to the get response and create its overload with a integer nullable param, and now everything is fine. Okay, so let's save that and go back to the service. It is expected to have the async. So now, so we are saying the get by group ID function that is used here we'll have a nullable group ID, and it will call the HTTP client service get method with that nullable GID. So sorry, is that not nullable? Oh, we forgot to just a second, we forgot to define this thing in the interface. Okay, so let's go to the interface and declare that with the integer nullable. Okay, now it is good, so now it is happy. Okay, fine. So now let's start the application and see the same effect on the UI. So F5. Okay, here in the to-do groups, if we click on this button, it should show us the 3 lists. Okay, now it is okay. If we go to the to-do list page, let's go back home, and the to-do lists, it will show only those lists that are not belonging to any groups. So for reaching out the list that belong to a group, we want to go into the groups and then click on this icon. Okay, right? The same functionality has to be implemented in the to-dos. Okay, so if we in the lists, if we click on some icon over here, it should take us to the to-dos page which belong to this list. So let's implement the same functionality in to-dos also. So in the infra, in the domain project interfaces, just as we defined this function for to-do list, let's go to the to-dos repo and define a function for to-dos. Okay, get by, it will be get by list ID. Okay, and the parameter name will be LID. Right, now as we have implemented this in the to-do list repository, let's take this one only and implement in to-dos repo. Implement interface, replace this line with this one from to-dos, where to-do list ID should be equal to the LID that we are passing. Okay, repository is done. Now let's close that. Let's go to services, application, the to-do list service, copy this one, to-do service, paste here, change the names, so it will be to-dos, to-do VM, and the parameter will be LID, and this one will be list. Okay, like so. Now in the implementation of this, let's take the, and in the to-do service implementation, let's implement the interface. Let's place it correctly and paste here. So if the LID is now, and this, let's public async, and in the to-dos repository, get by list ID, like so, passing in the LID. This one is fine, this one is not fine. So to-dos and return the model VMs. Okay, So the service is okay. Now let's go to the controller. So in the API controller, what we implemented here in the to-do lists, we want to implement the same thing in the to-dos. So down below, just after the delete range function, paste that, get by list ID. So let's copy this thing, sorry, and the parameter name will be GID. So instead of GID, control RR, LID, get by the list ID, and from, not from to do list, it will be from to do's service. Okay, and the name will be get by list ID. Nice. Okay, save. So up to API we are done. Let's close everything, and in the app, let's go to the pages of to-do list. Instead, first let's go to to-do groups and copy this link. So let's copy this link in the to-do list tools. Let's paste that link over here for to-dos, and the route will be LID, and rest is the same. Let it be. And now in the to-dos page, we want to tell it to have a parameter which will be called LID and will be nullable, and in the code behind we'll have a property prop tab integer nullable, sorry, and the name will be LID, and let's decorate it with from route attribute. Okay, and now in the to-do service, it will be get by list ID. The function is not there yet, so what we do in the to-do list service, we want to repeat that same thing here. So it will be list ID and the parameter will be LID. Save everything, to do service, let's go there in the web app and implement the interface. And here we want to do what we did in the to-do list service, so this one. So let's copy that and paste that here, and the controller name is okay, get by group ID function is okay, only thing is we want to pass in the LID and async here. Fine, save, and now let's start the application. So we will now get the to-dos by list ID, and let's see how many do we have. So we have 3 to-dos as of now, none belong to any list. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to to-dos. So it is saying 500 until server error. Let's put in a breakpoint here and hit that again. So it is going to to-dos slash get by, oh sorry, get by list ID. So let's restart. So when we hit to-dos page again, we'll see nothing. Let's try that here. So try it out, list ID 1. So we have nothing in list ID 1, right? So When we click to do's, hit the breakpoint, let's remove that, and we have all the to do's here, because any of these to do's does not belong to the list. Okay, so let's go to the database, and in the list number 1, let's put in this one in list number 1 by hard coding. Okay, so now if we go to this, we should see 2. If we go to lists, so the list 4 is not having any to do's, it will not show. But in the groups, if we go and see these lists, and the first list, if we click this, we'll see the to do that belongs to that list. So now the navigation is working fine. So there are groups, then we have the lists, and this list has only one to do. If we straight away go to lists, we see all the lists that don't belong to a group, and the to do's, we see all the to do's that don't belong to any list. Okay, so now this navigation is working fine. So with these implementations, let's extend the functionality. So let me start the application and show you something. When we go to the to-do groups and click here to see the lists, see the route param becomes 1. Okay, now if we want to go to that list page, this param is not cleared. So in order to clear this parameter, let's do in the layout page, wherever from we are going to this page, so wherever this thing is written in the current project, we want to do something. Just as we are going to this page with some ID here, from the layout page, we want to clear out this parameter. Okay, so the GID in this case will be nothing. Similarly for the to do's, so when we are going to the to do's page, the LID will be empty. Let's see that effect again. And now we'll use this GIDs and LIDs while creating and editing after this. Okay, so here we are. Let's go to the to-do groups and the lists. So see, now the GID parameter is set to 1, but if we now go to to-do lists, that param will be cleared. Okay, once again, now this is 1 and now this is cleared. Okay, so let's use this GID while creating a list, right? So in the to-do list page, we have a function for creating. So on get add, so wherever we have written this thing, let's do that only 2 places in this page, right? So model DTO we are creating, and here we'll say if the GID in the param has a value, then model DTO dot to do group ID should be equal to let's convert it to cast it into int and then pass it. So the GID dot value is, it says gets the value of the current nullable object if it has been assigned a valid underlying value. Okay, so let's use that. Okay, GID dot value, and in this case this will return the value of GID. Okay, and the same thing while editing. Okay, paste here, save, and on the to-dos page where we are adding a to-do, so it is only at two places. Let's add that line, but this time it will be LID and it will be a to-do list ID. Okay, and then LID dot value. So we are adding a list ID value if it has something in it while adding and while editing. Save all, and let's see the functionality in action. So if we are here in the to-do test group number 2, we don't have anything, but the GID is set to 2. Now if we add a list 1 list for group number 2, list number 1, and add, so it should be added to group number 2. Yay! And the same way, let's add a few more. So this is second number and then the third one. So now group 2 has 3 lists. Let's see that in the database. So we have the to-do lists, refresh and see. Same way, we have all the only one to-do belonging to a list. So let's go to to-dos also and check that. So this is the list. This is the list number 4, which is not belonging to any of the groups. Let's see its to-dos. So we have nothing, but the LID is now set to 4. So list number 4 and to-do number 1. Let me copy that to add a few. So add that and let's see. Yeah, list 4 and to-do 1, list 4 to-do 2. Okay, now let's go to the database and see here. So these two to-dos belong to list number 4, and the list number 4 does not belong to any of the groups. So now the navigation is, we want to go to groups, then in the lists, and then in those lists we see the to-dos. But these lists as of now don't have any to-dos. Oh, this one is having 1, back, this one is having nothing, and this one is also having nothing. Okay, now let's try editing something. So let's edit this one. So edit 1 and see GID is now 2. Let's see if we are, yeah, this one is successfully edited. So now the navigation of these is all done. In the next video we'll be covering a to-do add, manage, add and edit modal with all the functionalities that a to-do has. So we want to add a to-do item along with selection of list, due date, reminder date, repeat frequency, and if it is important or not. Okay, so we'll implement that using a modal. Okay, so that is it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found this video helpful and learned something, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button below. Your support means a lot to me. This encourages me to invest more time and create more valuable content for you. Remember to click the notification bell so you never miss an update on future videos. In the comment section below, please let me know what you learned from today's video, what was your favorite part. If you have any questions on today's topic or suggestions for future videos, feel free to drop them in the comments. I read and respond to as many comments as I can. To watch more videos on the same topic, check out the playlist or visit the channel. Thank you so much for your time. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep learning.